Hello, everybody. This is Rick Grantham of rickgrantham.com and Excel TV, Excel.tv. Welcome you to episode number 19. Oz, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm tired. I've been up working on a presentation on Excel, but this is going to wake me up like some caffeine out here in Portland where you get the good coffee. And Sylvia's over there grinning like a Cheshire cat. What are you doing?
I'm just enjoying my window open right here next to me. And not 11-degree weather. Sorry, Jordan. It's beautiful. Beautiful day in Los Angeles. So happy to be back.
Welcome back, Sylvia. And how are you doing today, Jordan?
Sylvia said it is 11 degrees in Dayton, so I'm very cold. And here's the thing. The wind chill is -1, so it's just really cold. But I'm using all that coldness to really get me going, to keep me alert and awake for this wonderful Excel TV episode.
All right, well, welcome. So this is Rick. I'm in sunny northern Florida, here at my home headquarters. Tonight is brought to you by chocolate wheat of Shock Top and leftover Halloween candy. Do this daddy style. So,
oh man, all right.
And your Cafe Press mug. So later on in the episode, it'll seem like I'm much more alert with that Portland coffee, but I won't be. So Jordan, would you mind kicking us off with the Excel challenge this week?
Oh yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so it's been a while. You know, we had a live stream last episode in which we didn't have a challenge. So we're actually going to jump to episode 17's challenge, and let me just flip on that screen share for y'all. Okay, so in episode 17, I said, which of these functions is a volatile function in Excel? This is what I asked. Okay, so the answer that I was looking for was indirect. Now, astute answerers, if I could call them answerers, I think that's a word, noted that rows, and I think it was areas, the previous versions of Excel help had said that these were also volatile functions, but upon review they really don't seem to be volatile, and I'm not really sure if the latest versions of the help say that, but at one point they did. So, who was our winner? It was Lex Rosie King. She responded on Facebook. We have a lot of responses on Facebook, so make sure to check that out. She's going to be the winner of a free shortcut placard. I guess they're called a placard from exceljet.net from our previous guest, so thank you for that. We really love it when our guests donate things. So, this week's question, and I'm going to be a shameless self-promoter on this because I get to decide the questions. In Chapter 1 of my new book, now here's the deal, you can download this chapter. We're going to have it available on Facebook. So in Chapter 1 of my new book, what do I argue you shouldn't be afraid of? Oh, man, what a question. Good multiple choice. Well, if you think you know the answer to this question, what you can do is you can go log on to Amazon and buy my book. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that. What we're really into, this is a new way of responding. So you take a blank check and you write memo Excel TV, and then you sign it so we know it's yours, and then you mail it to one of us, preferably me. So you can also always go on our Facebook. That's actually where we're getting a lot of our responses now. You can email us at challenge@excel.tv, or you can go on Twitter. And now, what is this episode's prize? Why? It's a free copy of Advanced Excel Essentials, so you can read it. You know, here's what's funny about this book. The two people who've bought it so far have sent me pictures of it on their toilet telling me they're going to read it, so that could be great. You know, put it next to your Uncle John's reader, right? It's a little thinner than that, but
Uncle John.
Is that what it's called, Uncle John, Big John reader? You know what I'm talking about. Where do these sound effects keep coming from?
Okay, anyway, all right, but that's
yeah, no. The jokes in this book and the stories are no less interesting. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? That Big John's reader, right? I'm not making that up. Someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Rick knows. Rick's the man.
Yeah, after my morning coffee, I love to go visit Big John. So thank you for that, there, Jordan. Sylvia's here this week. Sylvia, we want Jordan to be a proper guest. Be a proper guest.
Okay.
We get grilled by 3 co-hosts. So Sylvia's here to join us today. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Today we're going to talk to the author of this book.
Yes, we are.
Well,
Whoever he is.
Our special guest, all the way from Dayton, Ohio, the home of, is it the Pretenders? Oz, who else?
The Pretenders.
Slash Stone, the Family something or others.
It's the home of punk. A lot of punk bands came from Ohio. Just
really?
Yes.
We invented the ice cube maker here. So Logic 8's typewriter.
Okay.
Jordan, welcome to the show.
Yes.
Thank you. Home of aviation, birthplace of aviation.
Hopefully you're a long-time viewer, first-time caller.
First time watching the show, actually.
So tell me, this is your first book, just came out this week. Can you talk a little bit, just to start us off, on what made you decide to write a book? Like, what was the creative process around this?
That's a really good question. So what was happening was I was working as a contractor or as a consultant for, at that time it was for Booz Allen Hamilton. And I was working on an Air Force base in this analytics, I guess they call it analytics now, so this operations research center at a graduate school. And we were helping take Air Force research that the graduate students created and turn it into an application. Because often the research turned into a paper and then it didn't turn into an application. So they needed a quick way to do that, and Excel was often the choice. So I came in as an Excel developer, and I was with a few other developers, and I wasn't exactly sort of top of my game at that point. But as I learned over time, I started questioning why people were doing what they were doing, and I didn't feel like we always had a good reason for it. So I started blogging on it. I think what happened was I was at a conference, and someone did an Excel talk, and I was just very unimpressed by it. And I thought, man, this stuff that they presented is 10 years old. So I thought,
Let me back. Why we do some of the things we do? What's an example?
Sorry. What do you mean?
Back when you said that you looked at why do we do some of the things you do?
Well, I'll get into that.
Okay.
That'll be. I gotta get through the narrative first, otherwise I'll lose my train of thought. So just I'll get to that, okay? Because I talk a lot about that. But just to say that this guy had done something that was 10 years old, and I did not see other people, except for Chandu was one of them, Daniel Ferry of Excel Hero. They were doing new stuff, and I thought, I have something to contribute. I can do something new. So I started blogging about it, and I felt like I blog a lot, like I write a lot, and I felt like blogs were too short, and they started getting bigger and bigger. And then over time, as I was creating these on the side, I thought, holy crap, I have a book. This is something that, and people are actually interested in what I have to say. So, so that's really the impetus behind it. And yeah, I think that's where we could stop. So to answer Oz's question, so one of those things is Hungarian notation, and I don't want to belabor this because I've argued about it so much already, and I think people are really just sick of it. But Hungarian notation is that VBA notation, or at least coding notation that says you start, and this is nothing against people from Hungary. Sorry, Sylvia, I'm not trying to say anything about Hungarians. So
You're welcome.
Hungarian notation starts with the abbreviation of the first, usually a 3-letter abbreviation, and then for a variable, and then it has something describing a variable. So like a string would be str title, so that'd be a title, that would say string title, and people actually take this stuff and they bleed it over into named ranges. So they might say val response on a spreadsheet, value being something, a range on the spreadsheet. So this is not the best way to do it. I don't think it's the best way to do it. And for what it's worth, Microsoft has abandoned Hungarian notation. They do not encourage that you use it. The last time they encouraged it was probably Visual Basic 6.0. I mean, that's more than a decade ago. And yet we still do it. We still teach it. Something else, option explicit. I worked with someone, I know I've talked about this before, who said that they didn't like option explicit, and I found because it's not a standard. You have to put it on. You have to set it as an option. So because it's not a standard and you have to set it as an option, people are like, I'm not going to waste time with it. And I realized the code that they were producing was crap, and it was hard to go through and edit. I mean, people would do things like, I have a test variable, so they'd write T for a test variable, and then they might write TT. I had one guy, he would write MMMM for like he was thinking, and then he would make that a test variable. I mean, that stuff, that is not something that belongs in a real product. It's one thing to do that on your own, but this is stuff that was for the Air Force community. I mean, and that's what I would have to deal with, taking old people's things and seeing this variable that says MMM or A1 or B1. I mean, why do we teach people to abbreviate? I mean, is it really that hard to write a descriptive variable name?
One of the things I noticed, Jordan, in going through the first few chapters of the book is first off, you did bring up that argument with, we'll say, with Bill Jelen and reference the Excel TV episode, so that was nice. But also, what I noticed is as you argued for the loose camel case, and then talked about naming conventions, and at first I was like, I don't really care, your naming convention or how you're going to name a named range, just as an example. Who cares about that? And then as you started going from example to example to example, is how it flows through a logic screen and how it makes the VBA code at the very end so much more digestible. I thought was interesting. Would you mind just at the very highest level, just kind of briefly talk about how that's a contrarian view over what we see today? Sure.
So when most people code, and this is what I ran into arguing about Hungarian notation on my blog, most people code for themselves. I mean, this is the idea. So people, this is like the #1 argument I'm running up against with arguing anything differently, which is who the hell cares, right? Sorry, this is a family show. I shouldn't use those words.
We have a 7-second delay here. Can we please
cut that out? No, but I get very animated about this. So this is actually one of the #1 arguments against anything in life is who cares, right? It's certainly an argument against this. It's one I run into, and I think there's a fair point to it. So it's very hard to get people on my side without demonstrating it to them. But the simple answer is that there are two people you should code for. The first person is someone you hand this off to, so they understand what's going on. I mean, no one would be so silly to argue. I mean, it's one thing for these people to create products and say, I don't want someone looking at my code to steal what I do, but no one would be so silly as to argue that you should deliberately code in a jumbled and mangled way so as no one can follow it. So, I mean, I've actually met people who've said that to me, but I think that's nonsense because of the second person you need to code for, and that's future you. You need to keep future you in mind, because you're going to come back to this 2 months later, 6 months later, and you may have no idea what you did. Every time you sit down, it's going to be just just learning a little differently. So that's really important because you need to be able to read your code, and that's part of understanding it. So that's what the people I say you should code for. Everyone else and future you.
So what you think really is, if you're coding for a client, your biggest fear is that client might bring you back.
Right.
You have to interpret what you did.
Okay,
right.
but all right. So you want your client to bring you back, but would you not say that it's a fair statement that it's a pretty small percentage of those clients that are actually going to go into your code and know how to make changes, or I mean, that's the question. They're bringing you in because you have a special skill. It's pretty rare, in my experience, it's pretty rare that the client is going to be the one maintaining code after I'm gone. They might call me up 6 months down the road and say, oh, change this, change that, but...
Well, I've had situations where, say a recruiter says you got to be able to know VBA code, and why do they say that? Because a developer who's long gone wrote all this stuff, and they need somebody to be able to understand it. And it's not going to be them.
Right.
And any kind of development, we talk about that in the WordPress world. Your developer disappears on you. The client is not going to do it. They call another developer, and things are so customized, so undocumented. We just need to build you a whole new website, or spend $1 million on us trying to figure out what the hell they did.
Right.
And this is one thing that in one of the most fiery blog posts I wrote. I wrote the 6 reasons not to use VBA or be careful. Is because if there is a formula solution, you'll have an easier time of finding some random person who can deal with the formulas.
Usually.
VBA, use it when VBA is needed.
Yeah,
There are some cases when VBA is simpler, though. A
Well,
small percentage, but sometimes it's easier to use VBA. I'm just saying.
I talk about this stuff in the book. So to answer your question, Sylvia, about coding, okay, so the book was meant to be for several people. So for us consultants, you know, Rick said the fear is that they call us up and have us back. I mean, truth is in the consulting world, that's great. We love follow-on.
Yeah.
But the thing to think about is that it's like Oz said, it's not just for us consultants. It's for people who work in departments who have to pass things on, and it's for people who are going away and they need to have their work have a legacy. I mean, you may think, well, who cares if I'm not the one working on it? I mean, you want to have some pride in your coding, but the main thing for me, because I don't code for other people anymore, is to code for future me. And I think that if a client, even when a client calls you back, all right, and you have to look at this code again, or not sometimes, all of us have code that we've liked, right, that we save, and we keep it somewhere. Well, having a good structure for it is going to help us reuse it again. I mean, this is something, again, we talk about in the book. I go through this idea of reusable components because we should be building very broad-based capabilities that we can reapply. And part of that is having a good coding structure. And there was something I was going to address that Oz said, but now I forgot it. So, oh yeah, in terms of VBA, you know, I talk about this in the VBA chapter, which is if you do it simpler with formulas, do it with formulas. If you can do it simpler with VBA, do it with VBA. But don't use VBA under the guise of that being something that's advanced, because we all think, not we, a huge portion of Excel users out there think that advanced Excel is VBA. And that's something I want to challenge in this book, because it isn't just VBA. And in fact, using these ham-fisted VBA solutions, my old boss used to call it BF&I, which is brute force and ignorance. So that's what people do with these VBA solutions. And they make these spreadsheets that are just so colossal and so bloated and so hard to use and hard to understand and hard to interpret and even figure out what they did that it becomes not useful. And those are the people that the office calls the experts.
Right, but let me ask you one thing. Okay, so you and Kerry Walken started talking about this. Kerry said that he wants to have as much VBA in the editor as possible. I know you're a fan of named ranges, and his argument was it's all there for you to deal with. And I'm gonna tell you, last night I was trying to follow something somebody did, and he's got these variables. And I don't know where the variables are defined. And I'm assuming that he's got some named range that he never showed in the video. So I've got all this code that doesn't work.
You know, I can't really, I don't know what to say for what that guy did. But I do talk about naming ranges such that you do know where they're defined. So, I mean, I also challenge how we name ranges, because I think that's important. So, as, you know, as Rick was looking through it, he said that he thought, who cares, and then over time he's like, oh, this all makes sense together. So, you know, I want to keep this conversation high level so people can still, you know, listen and we don't have to go through everything, but it's all part of the same problem, whether it's VBA or whether it's formulas. It's the way you think about Excel. You need to build with future you in mind and other people. And if you do that, a lot of things extend from that.
On the subject of named ranges, Jordan, do you have similar strong opinions on naming conventions there?
Yes.
So, because, you know, you can kind of Hungarian notate, if you will, and named ranges as well, which, when you want to sort your variables, there is an argument to be made. Like, if I want to see all my table variables together, and, you know, I want to see them show up together in the list when I go into my name manager.
Yeah,
you know.
That actually, John Akampora, who's been reading my book, actually brought that up tonight before the episode about the table thing. So if you type in TVL, you start everything with table, and then you have the name afterward. and then if you say equals, it'll give you your list of tables.
Right.
My convention does not have a problem with that. So let me just show you an example. So if we're going to just keep this I'll describe what I do for people who end up listening. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. So I have this screen, and down below, in this really down below region, I have this tab that I've named calculations. So if I wanted to give this a named range here, I would call it calculations dot, and then I'd say, I don't know what we're going to call A1. Let's just call it total, calculations dot total. Okay, so now I've given this named range. I've said where it is. I know what spreadsheet it's on, and I actually have a little bit more to do with this in the VBA backend, where we rename the because this is probably still sheet 1 in the back end, and we're going to rename it to calculations too. There. So if you have tables on this calculations sheet, you could say calculations dot, and then give in your table name, give it the table name, and then later on in another sheet. So I've created a new sheet. I'm going to say equals, all right, and I've started typing in calculations dot total. It pops up, and when I look at this, I actually see where it's located. I know where it is, and this still doesn't violate the problem I have in the name manager. In fact, if I'm looking at the name manager, which when you make named ranges very quickly, they become worksheet scoped.
Right.
They don't or workbook scoped. They don't become scoped to the local sheet. Okay, so if I put the name in there, then I can sort those in the name manager, and I can see actually where they're located. And then if I use the shorthand brackets in VBA code, and I won't get into that, but I can use calculations dot something, and I know exactly what I'm referring to. So that's why.
Change the sheet name.
Sorry?
Provided you don't change the sheet name and have to go back and.
Well, this is why. I mean, the stuff I do has a lot to do with developing these advanced applications. So there's no reason if you have something you call it calculations. So I say call it calculations or backend. Once you've picked a name for that, there's no reason that you should change it. I mean, I know that happens, but in my experience, once you've done this enough times, you usually pick a name that you stick with. I mean, what I deal with is people who say, oh, I have this sheet, and it has some bit of analysis on it, and I want to make a copy of that sheet. So I'm going to make a copy of that, and then I'm going to call this 2 or 3. I talk about how to kind of fix that in the book, to keep a back-end database so you don't have all these sheets. But everything's all about creating these tight, compact spreadsheets and not trying to use more than you need to do.
So Jordan, I have 2 things for you before we head on to the next topic. Number one, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the difference between this book and the original dashboarding book, kind of what the difference is for our audience. And then number 2, you had some opinions about if statements, and that they're overused, and it was something I believe Daniel Ferry, the Excel hero, agrees with as well. And Lord knows I've built if statements I've been proud of. And so I was hoping you kind of talk about that as well as the contrarian view. So hit on those 2 things and we'll move on.
So the simple answer of this book is that it is an abridged, smaller version of the dashboards book. So what happened was, it's been taking me like 2.5 years to write that freaking dashboards book, and the publisher said, do you have a series of subset of chapters within that book that we could create a smaller book, an essentials book? Now that makes it sound like I'm repeating material. I'm not. We redid part of these chapters to some extent to make it for an essentials book. So think about it this way. This is the book that's like, here's what you do and how you do it. The dashboards book has a lot more theory, and it has stuff on data visualization. It has stuff that isn't necessarily, there's a chapter where what I show you is in Excel, but you won't even need Excel to use it at all, because it's not, it's on like, well, here are KPIs to put on your dashboards, here are prescriptive, descriptive, and predictive analytics. So there's a lot of theory in that. And I wanted to write that book because I think that there's a lot more of these types of books out there, which are good because I'm publishing one, so I don't want to insult it. But obviously this is going to fit nicely with a million other types of this type of book that says, here's how to do it, in and out. The dashboards book is a lot broader because I think people, more than just wanting to know how to do something or what to do, they want to understand the underlying reason for it. And we talk about that in this book, and that's why I'm very contrarian in this book. And I say, even if you don't agree with me in this book, if for nothing else, that it helps you reestablish why you do what you do, that's a good thing. And the Big Dashboards book is going to actually go into that with a lot more depth. Now, in addition, the Dashboards book is picking up a second author, and that's Chandu. I'm very grateful to have him on. He's going to write a few chapters for that book. When I originally started writing the Dashboards book, I was going to write this whole thing about how you can use Access in Excel. That was at the time Power Pivot was really not as mature as it is now. I think Power Pivot is actually very much the future now. I didn't back then. I really disliked it. But now that I see that it is, and I wanted Chandu, who's an expert in it, is doing really cool and new things with it, I wanted him on to help out with that. So those are the differences between this book. Tentatively, the new book is going to, or the Dashboards book, that's not new, it's old. The Dashboards book is going to release early next year. So right now, Amazon has it at 2016. That's just our publisher has not pushed the updates based on the discussions with Chandu and I yet. So there's going to be a few more things that have to happen before they push those updates, but they are coming. Okay, so answer your question about if formulas. So I did steal this from Daniel Ferry. I mean, let's be real here. I read that article he wrote on if being the most overused formula, and it really struck a chord with me because I had never seen anything like it before. And the stuff he was saying was so awesome, and it made so much sense. So here's what I say in the book, because there needs to be rules, and I'm not always against using if, but here's what I say. There are certain scenarios where you have a branching condition, right? So that's something where a nested if would work. So that means that if such and such happens, then we would expect these other results. And I know that's not really a good way of explaining it, but I'll get to that in a second. What we see if used for is for a lot of nonsense. So like we have Microsoft in its nested if example, it has this letter grade lookup where it has A, B, C, and D, and it uses nested ifs with a where you give it a raw score and it tells you what letter grade you have. Well, that is a lookup problem. That is not an if problem. Okay, that's not a condition because you don't receive a C because you didn't receive a B. I mean, I know that seems a little hard to understand, but that is a lookup problem based on an ordinal scale of grades. The underlying thing to understand that we're modeling are grades. That is a scale, right? We also see this with choose. Choose is a great function. People say, well, if it isn't this or if it isn't that. So choose lets you, you give it a number and then it returns, you give it an index number and it returns how many parameters out. And I urge everyone to look up choose. So if I give choose a 2, it's going to return what's 2 parameters out within that formula. People will use complicated ifs to recreate what choose does, all right? If you are looking up something specific, choose works, index works, these are lookup problems or tests of scale. They're not branching condition problems. So you need to work backwards at your result and say, if I have this result, does it naturally follow from this previous condition? And if you write ifs in this way, again, this is the who cares argument. Who cares if it works? But if you write ifs in this way, you'll realize you'll more quickly understand what's going on because formulas naturally model the underlying problem. And that is one of the big takeaways of the book. You need to code naturally. They call it semantic coding. I mean, semantic coding is related, but that is part of it. Semantic coding is big in HTML and the web world. There's no reason why we're not doing this. Like, why are we stuck with this old way of thinking about these problems? So,
yeah, I agree with you. I've actually written else or if-else statements until I've run out of space. and reading the chapter, I was like, it's just why wasn't I thinking about it that way? So with that in mind, that is a contrarian view. And Sylvia, would you mind kicking us off with the topic of the week in that vein?
Why, I'd be happy to. All right, so topic of the evening is contrarianism, or is it? Breaking the rules, bucking conventions, knowing when to come out with bold opinions, even when it may cost you the job or you might, get into a tiff with your boss. I don't know who ever said that the customer is always right, but I beg to differ. In fact, they are most often not right, which is why they're calling in, people like my co-panelists here, the experts, to help them solve a problem. So I think this is, relevant certainly for, just about any business we can imagine, but we run into it all the time as Excel consultants, as you guys well know. just this very year, yay! I was fired from a job second day in because I had to buck the customer's always right convention, and I just couldn't get on board with a financial model, which I'll put in quotes, that was a really terrible piece of work, and it was one of those situations where the client said, well, we just want you to just make a few changes to this tab over here, and I just had to say, I can't touch that house of cards. I finessed it in such a way that I wasn't rude, but it cost me the job, because a lot of times you run into these situations in the Excel business where people are very attached to their work. This is my baby, it's my spreadsheet. It took me 5 years to develop it, and isn't it great? And you look at it and it's like, like when your friends, you're the situation where your friend has a baby and it's like really sad because the baby's just not cute. Most babies are cute, and you're standing there and you're looking in the crib and you're like, it's kind of like that with the but with the financial model, and they're calling it a financial model, and it was really terrible. So that cost me that job. But had I gone with the customer's always right convention, guess who gets blamed when that house of cards comes down? So sometimes you just gotta go against the grain. So today I think and certainly Jordan's book, which I can't wait to read. It's
a page turner.
It's a page turner, I hear. No, I'm really looking forward to that part, because I think Jordan and I are on aligned, as someone famous once said.
Yes, somebody famous.
On the topic of contrarianism, if that makes sense.
But I want to go back and ask you what you at a broad level. What's an example of a house of cards that you didn't want to touch? What could have happened?
Well, it's because it was just so. It was one of those so overgrown spaghetti applications. There was just no, there was no flow to it. There were hard-coded things mixed in with the formulas. There was no, I know we'll get into documentation, but there was no documentation of any kind.
Right.
Just no consistency. And so it was very hard, and as we all know, those things are very hard to just fix. No, you can't just tweak one little sheet on the, sheet tab number 57 and think that everything's going to magically update. So unfortunately, what happens when you go in as a consultant and they just tweak this. We don't know why it's taking 20 minutes to open this file, but surely you can figure it out. Maybe if you just fixed a few formulas, So just having the confidence to say, yeah, no, this is one of those situations where you really have to start from scratch. But yeah, the house of cards thing is, I see it fairly often in my business.
Right. You hit on a lot of things there, so I'm gonna. It'd be very easy for this to turn into a marketing conversation. I don't want it to turn into that. This is an Excel one, but I just want to hit on a few things.
Sure.
First, you had mentioned customers not always right. I completely agree, but they are always the one who are writing the checks.
Correct.
And being a contrarian, I would say I'd be comfortable with that. I'd be comfortable with taking on the risk and taking on what the customer wants to do until my reputation is at stake. Right. Until that creates a bad name for me in the marketplace. But here's the thing. Here's why it turns into a marketing conversation. I need to be able to afford to do that. Right? There's a hierarchy of needs and wants here, and I need to eat. And then after I need to eat, I need to be able to create an environment where instead of me knocking on doors for customers, customers are coming to me.
Right.
And they're coming to me because I'm a contrarian. Right?
Well,
they're coming to me because I think of things differently. Because I like things like this. Right?
I'd like to speak to that.
It looks like this, and I'm on TV, and customers are coming to me, and as a result, that ends up being a very positive thing. Let's say a regular guy in the finance department, who's saying he's going to buck the system, there's certainly a different risk involved in that. But what are your thoughts on that, Jordan?
Here's my thought. I think that people there's like several fears that people have, and that explains why someone has an ego about a spreadsheet, right? They're afraid of being wrong is one of them. So they don't like someone coming in and challenging them. Even though when you think about what a consultant is, or you think about what an Excel developer does, that we're solvers. If you didn't have a problem, you wouldn't need us. My view is this, and I know this is, you want to stay away from the marketing conversation, but I think it's part and parcel of who I am and how I develop in Excel. When customers say to me, no one has said that to me before, or like, you're saying things that nobody else does, I say that's why you need me. I mean, I know that sounds cocky, but it's the truth, because it's never too late to actually have your own opinion. And you have to be bold and turn work away from people who don't understand that, because otherwise you're going to spin your wheels, and you can't even, you have to think about it this way. You may think, well, if I turn it away, I won't have money. It's more like this. You cannot provide value to a customer who does not understand that you are there to push back to some extent. And not, because if they want someone to make them happy all the time, they can get a dog, right? I mean, that's not what you're there for.
Right.
You're not paid to make them happy. I was going to say you could be another job, but that's the point. So my view is it's never too late to make that your brand, and it's not just about branding. I mean, it's about thinking about these problems, because I may come back in a year and say this is a total piece of crap. I don't like my book. I don't think that's going to happen, but there are professors. My wife is getting a PhD. I talked to them about the book they've written, and one of them said, I can't even read my first book because there's so much I disagree with. But he is still better off for having written it, and people are still better off for having read it, because it helped them think about the problem. And that is what we do at the end of the day. Take away the technology, take away the Excel, we help them think about the problem. And you, Rick, the way you help them think about the problem is unique to you. I think Chandu even said that. Why Jordan write a book about dashboards? Why would anyone even want to read it? Everyone has stuff about dashboards, because there's something unique to be said about it, and something unique that you all can say. So you're all special, gold stars, special snowflakes, all over.
And so a few things on that. First off, I don't mind if it turns into a marketing conversation. I just didn't want to be the one to drag it there.
Oh no, it's a problem.
With that, and I get your point on that. And to that point, if you go to my website right now, the rickgrantham.com site, and you signed up for my list, you hit about email number 4 on day number 4. In that email I talked about there's certain things that people don't tell you. People don't tell you about your business. They're just not frank with you, and I call it the ugly baby syndrome, right? Nobody tells you that you have an ugly baby. That baby might be ugly. Nobody tells you that, right? And like letter number 5 that comes out, the heading is "Sorry about your ugly baby." Now, what are we going to do about it? And I believe that you have to have some sort of a contrarian view. You have to have something that isn't just me too. What do you think about that, Oz?
I have a lot to think about. First of all, when I first started freelancing and realized that I needed a website and I needed a blog, it was going to be an Excel tips and tricks, yet one more of those, and nice and safe. And I realized I show up with this tattoo behind my ear and my cowboy boots, and the gig is up. Ours is not nice and safe. Ours is hungry and smells like cigars. So I had to own it. And then, reading blogs like Erica Napolitano, and there is this one architect. He did a blog post that really just did something to me, because he was talking about old stiff ways of planning and how the architects do it, and you could tell he was getting worked up to where there was nothing else he could have said and that's bullshit. I said, okay, it's not nice and safe. He's passionate about something. He made a point, and he didn't dance around it. And so I've allowed myself to go out on a limb and not get gratuitous, but to have some passion in addition to opinions, and have fun. The whole thing about the anti-VLOOKUP crowd is back out in the streets again. You know, and they're tattered clothes and drooling and the zombie apocalypse is upon us. Because the thing is, I've got a very strong opinion about it, and I feel like I want to defend my people who, you know, they're the grant writer at a nonprofit. VLOOKUP works. 50 lines of data, VLOOKUP, copy, paste his values, go back to being a grant writer. They don't want me coming in there talking about memory and robustness and all of that. So, you know, if the butter knife is going to get the screw in the wall at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's going to work, then go with it. Don't wait till the Home Depot opens in the morning and go get a power drill with the darn screwdriver bits. You know, use the screwdriver, use the butter knife. So, you know, it's really looking for the authenticity. What matters? What matters to me? And my blog went from Excel tips and tricks to what it means to be a good analyst. Because, yeah, you use your index match. You use your text to columns and your pivot table and your calculated fields in your pivot table. But then somebody doesn't like your numbers, and then you go to getting defensive. Or somebody finds an error in your spreadsheet, and you try to say it wasn't me. Or somebody notices that you've been doing analysis on crap data that wasn't cleaned. All of the fancy stuff goes out the window along with you when you walk down to HR. So that's where I'm passionate. Is I don't care if you are writing on your bedroom wall with a crayon. Are you being a good analyst as far as, like, you know, your data quality and owning what you do?
No, I mean, this is really, like, it goes to the heart of why it's important, because you know, I'm not trying to belabor the book. It's just so fresh because I just have it out here, sitting right here in front of me. But the point is, it doesn't really matter. Like, you know, the stuff I say in here, I don't care if you memorize it. It doesn't matter if you memorize it. The thing I want to teach is not, it's not about what's in the book or necessarily the applications. I mean, that's important because people need to see why it is I think. But the real stuff, the real thing that you take away is what, Oz, what you were talking about, that you found out through writing this blog what people need, and we're not, here's how to do VLOOKUP. Although they do need to know how to do VLOOKUP, but more important, they need to know how to look at a screw in a wall in the middle of the night and say, how can I fix that right now? And even though our audiences are probably a little bit different, because, you know, I have this view, we'll do it the right way. I mean, there is a bias that I might have to say, like, wait for Home Depot to open. I don't really know. I'm just saying, you know, I'm very into, like, do it this way. My point is, no one would get anything done if we always did things a certain way. And just to, I know I keep talking, but I have this analogy that I use with clients, which is this, that if people want me to do Excel work, right, this per hour Excel work, why me? No, seriously, like, why me? I want to hear that, because anyone can do it. They don't need me. I'm overkill. I mean, the thing is that they look at me, if they look at me like a taxi, like, you know, you come home from the airport, what taxi company do you pick? Who cares? You don't even get a choice. You have to, there's a line of them, right? You just have to pick the closest one in that line. And then they'll run your meter. You know, maybe they're good, maybe they're bad. If they suck because they're running the meter, you can't just stop and get out in the middle of town. But the point is, nobody ever is like, oh, I like this taxi driver, I'm going to call him back. You know, maybe you get someone's card and they pick you up, but no one cares. I mean, I have no offense to taxi drivers, but the point is that that's a different type of commodity, and if you sell yourself as that commodity, then you're not anything. You're not being contrarian. I mean, you're not doing anything that's worth giving away, because you don't need an Excel MVP to code your stuff, okay? People know VBA, they know formulas, they can look at my blog. That's not, there's no necessarily power in that I think is worth selling, but if you have something you're passionate about, then you have to be bold and take a stand, because the stuff the interesting stuff like worth writing about is stuff that's different. Someone might say, I'm the best person to hire because I promise to deliver my stuff on time. My customer service is excellent. I have high quality code. Well, so does everyone else. I mean, seriously, so does everyone else. What actually makes you different? I mean, that's a minimum that we should require of people, right?
You got to know what your currency is what you're saying.
And you know something, and Sylvia started this off by talking about getting fired from a gig and standing your ground and all. And yeah, and I've been in those situations where somebody they want corners cut because of their budget.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why do we have to do this? Well, because the stakes are too high for me to not do certain things. And maybe we can do a piece of something. We won't do the whole thing, but I am not going to leave off the validation. So yeah, there's some minimum responsible level of development. And thinking too about commenting code and all of this stuff, because yeah, future me has had problems and I've learned from that. But yeah, you got to stand your ground. And also thinking about sometimes like I'm broke and I need money and here is this potential gig, and then I can see resentment is going to take over everything.
Mm-hmm.
I might have that money in the bank, but I know it should be 4 times more, and now I'm resentful as hell. And so, and the whole...
Those aren't easy decisions,
Right,
they're not easy decisions, especially when you're like, yeah, times have been, times have been tough this year, and here's this project, and but one's a short term and one's a long term. There's always a risk. Yeah, sure. There's a risk. So you take a risk either way. So you have to make that evaluation. I'm going to risk just going along with it because I need the money right now and risk my reputation suffering, or I'm going to take the risk of standing my ground and being true to my principles, and then hopefully there's another gig right around the corner because I'm really hurting this year. So those aren't easy. That's something you have to evaluate.
You need to be in a position to be able to stand your ground. Right, you need to be in a financial position. You need to be in a in a marketing position,
sure,
and all that sort of stuff to be able to afford that. And that brings me to a comment that you made just a few minutes ago, Jordan. You said it jokingly. You said, "Why would you come to me? I'm overkill." And I think I'm overkill is a great contrarian marketing ploy. I'm overkill. I like that.
Oh, it wasn't even. It's not even meant to be a marketing ploy. It's just meant to be like, I get this. I
got dibs. I got dibs.
You can use. Well, I already use it. I mean, I just say like, it's funny. The 2 people I've said that to have come back. I said it because I was going to refer the project, and they said, and I still may end up referring the project. But they said, no, we really want you. We want to get it done right. And it occurred to me that was but I really was just saying it to say it, because I don't like doing projects that are like, all right, I need these 5 things done. Here's the spreadsheet. That's not what I'm. Get anyone to do that. I have good referrals for that, but that's anything. That's something that really anyone could do. What I want to do is hit the fundamental underlying parts of the project to figure out if this is even worth doing, because it may even be cheaper to find something else. And I don't really. It's not about making money. Okay, so it is about, I have to make money to live. But I just wanted, this is my experience, and I did borrow a lot of this from Alan Weiss's $1 Million Consulting book, which I really love. But it's very hard in those moments where you're looking for money to turn down work. But if it's not something that your heart is in, you are going to have a crappy experience. And when I look back, that work that I accepted and didn't turn it down because I was like, well, you can't turn away work. It's all been problematic. I can't even think of one that was a good experience. Or ones that I just pursued because I said, oh, I don't want to turn down work, and I got to the proposal phase, and they said, nah. It's really, you think that you're not in a financial position or you don't have the reputation, but it's never too late to start. Again, that's like kind of old, in my opinion, that's, no offense, it's old style thinking to say that you need to move yourself up to this position. You're already smart enough. There's no barriers to entries in consulting. There's no test to take. You're smart enough. You can come in, and if you think you have something worth saying, then you have to say it. Otherwise, you're a taxi driver.
Yeah, you don't, and a taxi driver, you're going to the people. You create an environment where the people are coming to you. It's really how much do you get out there. And to that point, you said things worth doing. And speaking of things worth doing, Oz, would you mind showing us some things worth doing in our tip section this week?
Uh-oh. All right. Hot tips. Open your mouth. Here we go. And I do not have to share my screen because this is my hot tip. I'm gonna give you I'm gonna heighten this for you. Back August 16th. A man got in his car to head west, and he could only take certain things with him. He had to be judicious about it. And one thing that he brought was his VBA codes binder. There are a lot of Excel books that are still back in Chicago waiting for one day, but where do you put your code after you've written code that works? In this binder with notes and flags on the pages so that I can go back and see what did work when I made this inventory control system. And I know that I built, there was something for going to another page and retrieving birthdays that were coming up within the next 2 weeks. Where is that code? It's in here, and I can refer back to it to see what I did. So that is the hot tip for people who are writing VBA. And I do not hesitate. 5! 5, y'all! 5, you got to do it! You've got to get your binder! Yeah!
Binder is very contrarian.
That's right.
Yeah, 3-ring binders. Note to self, how do I turn this into a video?
That's right.
I love it. I love that 3-ring binder. I still print stuff out. I mean, I have my duplex printer, and I kill lots of trees. Sorry, trees, but I don't even, there are people who are buying this book on the Kindle e-reader, and I do not even know how you read a tech book on an e-reader. But
and one thing that I like with technical books, paper books, is I get away from the computer, I get away from the internet, I'm stalled somehow, and I need to focus. I can go in the backyard where I don't have a Wi-Fi connection, there's just me and a cigar and this binder or whatever I've got, and figure out, okay, what did I do, what am I going to do, how do I need to retrofit things so that I can go back onto the field and whoop somebody's ass. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I love that. When I first started learning about learning to code, I remember I think I was in 4th grade, and I was like looking at these coding for kids books. Okay, so I would read these books. So I grew up as a Orthodox Jew, not really so practicing anymore, but that's important because I would read these books on Saturday, so on the Shabbat, when we didn't use electricity. So I did not have a computer in front of me. So I read all these programming books before, and this was even before I had the stuff to install and use them. So I learned them all on the days in which I could not even apply the concepts. And because of that, I feel like I developed a way of thinking about problems that does not make me obsessed with technology. And I think that's a great way to learn, and I think people are scared to learn that way. But if you think about, I'm not really a music guy, but isn't there like the Suzuki method of teaching viola or violin where My sister did viola, so I don't quite remember this. But you learn the notes before you learn. Someone's going to write in and tell me how I messed this up. But there is something to this fact that you learn differently.
Yeah. Well, there's one thing, being a musician and playing something like D'Angelo's Spanish Joint, and it's got some odd hits in there. And if you are there as a band trying to listen to it, and then people start to play along with it, and you never get it. You got to put your instruments down, go outside, listen, think. You got to get away, get off the field, put the equipment away, and go work this out, and then come back.
Right. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to show my tip.
Jump in.
This is not something, I'm trying to keep up. I was even concerned about showing this because I wanted to keep with our Contrarian theme today, but I don't tell this to few people because I don't think they like it. Okay, so let's say I have this Excel product. Here I have this thing that says Excel thing. Here I have a chart. So what many auditing in like spreadsheet design rules, they say things like you should have a documentation page. In fact, I found this old KPMG slide deck that had said something that on your documentation tab you should have you should write the person who you should write what the workbook does, instructions for use. You should define all the macros, where the input comes in, where the output goes, the methodology you use, all this stuff, intended results within the spreadsheet. Now I'm looking down at my presentation. It still says Excel thing, doesn't it? It didn't update, did it? Let's try this one more time. Okay, so you see this page, it says documentation. Okay, so I have this lorem ipsum generator here, and I've just put some fake documentation, but I based this off of some ones I've really seen. So a lot of people think that this is a really good idea to put the documentation in your code. Or not in your code, in your spreadsheet. I think this is a terrible idea. Excel is not a word processor. If you use Word for this, you can actually create a table of contents, and you can add pictures, and you can turn it into a PDF where things link, and you can send it around. But people are afraid of making a PDF where it's separate from the spreadsheet. This is not a good way to go. And one reason this is not a good way to go is that people put pictures in this, they put full descriptions. Well, you already have a spreadsheet that does heavy-duty work. All those descriptions, all those text boxes, those images, those are all extra memory you're adding on. I mean, you're going to add 2 to 3 megabytes. Now, that's not big in our world of sending things around, but it's actually very big for an Excel spreadsheet. So you're already having it process, some hard model, and now you have all this extra stuff in there that doesn't need to be there, and people think that it does. They think you need to have documentation in the spreadsheet. Now, note, I'm not saying you shouldn't put small sentences and text boxes that say, click here to do this. I don't have a problem with that. And to wit, I want to just demonstrate this point. If I put my mouse over something here, there's a small amount of instructions in Excel, but the main instructions that you get for Excel exist online. They don't exist as part of the product anymore. So keep that in mind. And then the second part of this is that, and I was looking at there was another audit, I think this was from a Society of Actuaries I was looking at. They said, oh yeah, what you really need to do is title your spreadsheet, have a welcome tab, it has a title, it has a version, and then you have to put the creator. Well, I'm not necessarily against putting the creator on it, but this idea of updating a version, in my practice, very few people actually remember to update the versions on here, and they become meaningless. What you really should do, and I talked about this in an earlier episode, is you should keep your version numbers in your file name. As well, you don't need a title for the file if your display, your presentation tab already has a title on it. It doesn't help you out. Here, you're not really going to, I don't really see a problem with in the same way that I see a problem with what I've seen in terms of documentation of how bloated it makes a spreadsheet. But again, it's all part of the problem that we think that we're controlling these things through a spreadsheet when there's already inherent mechanisms to do it. So, for example, when I save it, it will keep that I was the last person to use it, and you can save the version numbers in it. And when you do a save as, you're always creating a new version versus just changing it on here. One other thing I've seen people do is, well, I want a timestamp for every time I save it. So they use now or today, which are volatile formulas. Again, you already have a bloated spreadsheet. You're going to make a change. You're going to make a change on here, and now it's going to update and it's going to recalculate everything. So the lesson to take away from this is keep the things in Excel that you need Excel for. But if you can get away without using, I mean, if you can put these in other documents, you are not violating Sarbanes-Oxley by putting this in another document and keeping it with it. And that's really my take on that.
I'm agreeing with you. And also another good argument to not have documentation of that kind inside your workbook is that, A, nobody reads it.
Yeah. Who reads it?
They always ask for it, but 9 times out of 10 they're not going to read it unless you have a very detail-oriented client, and that's fine. So you give it to them in a nice PDF with the screenshots. They're never going to read it, but they paid you to make it, fine. But because people don't have the attention spans, it's just the reality of the world we live in today. So I like to make, if I do need instructions, they are real time, and sort of like you pointed out with the when you were hovering over the text align or whatever, same concept. So you click on a cell, if it needs to have instructions, put it in a cell note or a data validation pop-up thingy. That's the technical term. But that way it's just a tiny amount of information, only the information they need at the time, because they don't want to absorb any more than that anyway. So it's overkill.
It is, and they don't read, especially they don't read it if it's in the Excel file, because it's not easy to read. I mean, it's not conducive like a Word file is, or a PDF. I mean, it wasn't designed to do that.
Right.
All right, as you said, as judge and jury.
Yeah.
How many copies is that?
Oh man.
It's really more of an argument than a tip.
Right. Well, and okay,
I'll make that into a video either.
Here's what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna give that a 5 because you gotta at least think about that and have an opinion about it. That's because I have mixed feelings about it. I can see where you put documentation in and nobody reads it. Then with Excel web app, objects don't transfer over. Right, shapes don't transfer over. You can add pictures, you can add charts, and so I have had to look with even the simplest shape that says do not touch anything on this sheet. If it's in a rectangle shape,
well, Excel web app is a whole new ballpark.
Well,
yeah,
and also
it is something
if you want to buck conventions or whatever, don't do any PDF or anything. Make a little video.
Yeah, that'll work too.
Little tutorial.
Yes.
I mean, people like a 5-minute tutorial. There's plenty of free stuff out there that you can use. I use Camtasia, as you guys know. I'm a little obsessed with Camtasia these days. But you can make very effective, a very effective 5-minute video to explain, what would have taken you a few pages on a PDF that nobody reads. So.
Yes, and I've done that for clients. I will put on I'll make a 2-minute, 5-minute video.
Right.
Put it on. You can list it, because if you put it private, then you gotta. It's more complicated.
Well, you just send it to them as an MP4 or whatever, and they have it on their own internal network, and then they have your lovely voice and likeness or whatever in their on their company servers to remember you by. So that's also a nice little bonus.
So I give this a 5 for the conversation needing to be had.
Well, okay, so, the point here is the people who are advancing this stuff are not you and I. They're often auditors or actuaries, and I used to be an auditor, and there's an accountant way of thinking, and they want to make a spreadsheet like it, but they don't realize that the practical implications of these things are not useful. I understand it's important that they need to exist because we need to have spreadsheet auditing and archiving of versions. But this thing where people are going to update the version each time, well, maybe the accountant with the accountant personality, which is why I'm not an accountant because I don't have an accountant personality, will update it every time. But most of us are not OCD like that, with all due respect to accountants. So I've insulted taxi drivers and accountants.
Nice.
Our core audience.
The person who's driving you to the person who's paying you.
Right.
Yeah. Nicely done. Nicely done.
But it's
There's
just
that contrarianism coming through on
Right.
Excel.
Right. Well, we dropped off both. I guess we lost our market share for both of those tonight. You're welcome, everyone.
You're welcome, America.
So Sylvia, you had a tip as well, correct?
I do. So let's see if we can get a screen share going here. Share this. And does everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah?
Ooh,
Okay.
wow. So fancy.
Awesome. So, well, I actually couldn't decide which tip to use. So, and let's say, why am I getting no sound? So I'm going to have you guys tell me which one you want to see first. We can either go with picking formulas from a drop-down list, or we can start with spicing up your spreadsheets with sound. Except that I haven't tested to see if sound works on the screen share. Let's see. Please hold. That doesn't appear to work.
I heard something.
Okay.
Yeah, we hear that.
Okay.
I want to pick. Either Jordan or I'll pick. Let's do rock paper scissors. Me and Jordan. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
All right, that's
Okay.
scissors. Go again.
Scissors.
1, 2, 3.
3. Okay, that's paper over rock.
All right.
I win.
What's it gonna be?
I don't know. I'm gonna pick one.
All right, here we go. So this is falling under the category of when your end user does not need to see how the sausage is made. And you all know what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of talk out there about, VLOOKUP versus index match and all this stuff. And, well, my client's not going to be able to do a VLOOKUP on their own, blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, hey, you can have it both ways. You don't need to show them any of the sausage making process, but you can have that complexity in the background. Now, this is a no VBA solution for allowing the client to put in either a formula or fill in the blank. And if they want to put a formula in, they can use a drop-down. Instead of having to do a VLOOKUP, they use a drop-down. Let me show you what I mean. So I've got an input screen here. It's just, I know it doesn't look like Excel, but I've designed a simple input form, for someone who doesn't have a lot of Excel experience. So we make it very, very user-friendly. Now they've got a build to name. They can pick, from a list of clients. That's an easy one. That's just coming from a back-end table here. Okay, so we've got build to name. Now, I want my client to be able to either type in the address or look it up. Okay, so all of the addresses are in this table here. So we could, of course, construct a VLOOKUP to say, look up client name in my table. Let me get my little arrow there, and I'm just going to, let's see, address line 1. So we all know how to do that, right? But we're worried that our client is not going to be able to remember how to do that VLOOKUP. So what I'm going to do here is, once I've entered the VLOOKUP, I'm going to make one little modification, because we all know that column index thing could get problematic if they start inserting columns on the table, right? So rather than hard coding that, we're going to say, let's match that bad boy against our table headers. We'll do 0, right? Okay, so now I've got my basic VLOOKUP, which in theory would work for all of these fields, assuming I have, so if I paste formulas there, I'm going to pick a different address. Please hold. Let's see. So that same, is everybody with me so far? So I've basically got the exact same VLOOKUP syntax, right? But I don't want them to have to put that in every single time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a named formula. This is just like creating named ranges, but you use the formula syntax as the name definition. So what I did here is I just copy that VLOOKUP syntax, and I've done this in advance, like on the cooking shows, and I've added a name. And I've called that name Look It Up, right? So I added that name, called it Look It Up, And I say, yes, I want to make changes. Now, so the idea is I want my client to be able to choose from a drop-down list. So I'm going to create a little data validation here. And the key to being able to choose a formula is to use not equals, but equals plus. That lets it know, look it up. That lets it know that it is a formula and not a list, right? So now I can paste that same data validation to all these other cells, right? Right? And now look it up. They can either type in their own address, 123 Oz du Soleil Ave, or, oh, I forgot to turn this part off, validation. Take off error alert, right? So now I can either say Oz du Soleil Ave, or I can say look it up. And they don't have to see the sausage behind the VLOOKUP. See what I'm saying? So I don't know when I discovered this, but it was a really joyful moment when I discovered that you can actually have a list of formulas in a data validation setting. The key is you just have to start with a plus sign, right? Another application of this, I'll show you, is this is a service desk dashboard, or an IT service provider dashboard, right? And they have a service level agreement with their client that says, hey, we're going to answer calls in less than or equal to 30 seconds. Our call abandonment rate is going to be less than 5%. And then you have, you know, the ability to track performance. I might want to see that metric in days or hours or minutes or seconds. So each of those are just formulas, right? I have named formulas called default display, which is whatever this is, in this case seconds, but I can also display in hours, minutes, or seconds, whatever the case may be. And those are built-in formulas, just named formulas, and Jordan's going to look at this Hungarian-esque notation and totally get on my case, but these are all just, you know, they don't have to be VLOOKUPs, they could be index, match, whatever.
Well, you are Hungarian, so it's different.
I am indeed. So it's a great way to, you know, make a formula in the background. Now notice I use no VBA, that the client can just pick from a drop-down. And then you can have your cake and eat it too. So you have the ability, because that was an issue for a long time. I'm like, how can I want to protect the formula, but sometimes I want them to be able to overwrite with just whatever they want. Yeah. Right? So you can make it easy for them to understand without having to see all the sausage. Okay? So that's formulas in drop-down lists. I know I went through that very fast, so if anybody would like a copy of this little template, I'd be happy to share it on
sure.
Wherever you guys have it.
I would like that.
Yeah, we'll share it through the blog or through our website.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send it to you guys offline.
Can you pick another build too, and let's go through just an example.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to try to find one that has a fully populated address. Okay, let's go with Ace Hardware. All right. So let's go with these. Obviously, these names have been changed to protect the innocent. But so there you go. So now it still says Oz du Soleil Ave, but if I just changed it to look it up, it's a VLOOKUP that pulls in the address for that client.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Same thing for all of these. I can choose look it up. There's no line 2 address. Look it up. Look it up. Look it up. Right. So I don't need that whole VLOOKUP syntax.
Great. Great. I like that. I like that. See? Oh, man. You got more banded. Sylvia.
Wow. All right. You're welcome.
Man.
4. All right.
I've got to lay down. Wait, can you wait a half hour before you show the next thing?
Yeah, you don't want to get cramps.
No, we don't want to get cramps. So the next thing is kind of fun with sound. Now, I have to, I really have to give credit where credit's due here. Mr. Where is he? Mr. John Walkenbach. We all know and love him. This is where I originally got this idea. When I discovered that you can play a wave sound, and when you can use a macro to play sound effects, it changed my life. I mean, I'm telling you, I can amuse myself all damn day long, believe you me. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of the sound effects. So what I've done, and the way that this tip came about was I saw who somebody blogged about, everybody's QAT. They took, yours was on there.
That was Chris Macro.
That's right, Chris Macro. Yeah. So he, listed, I guess, a handful of people and what they had on their QAT. So I was like, oh, what's on my... Mine's all sound effects. So as you know, I do lots of live presentations, and talking about Excel for hours on end can be really hard, so sound is a great way to see if your audience is engaged. You can attach sound to a worksheet event or a button on your QAT. So, for example, now that was just a sound clip on, so I have all of these on my QAT. So I have a handful of them for various, scenarios that may come up. Of course, the one when nobody's listening, you got your crickets. When everybody's, you get the glazed looks, little Scooby noise. So the way that this works is I've got these in I keep these in my personal macro workbook. Here's a little my little music tab, and it's very simple. You just have this. Jordan probably knows exactly what all this means. So at the top you have this statement here, this declaration of the function, sound play, sound 32, whatever the heck that is. This I just copied from John Walkenbach. Then you want to have a folder where you keep all of your favorite wave files, right? So I moved all mine to a folder called None of Your Business. And so there I've got my laugh track, my applause, my crickets, my little meow mix song, my Scooby noise. And so when the situation calls for it, I can play the appropriate sound effect. So I've taken these and I've just attached them to my QAT. So, when I need applause, I got my applause. It's right there at my fingertips. I got my Hungarian violins. And after a while you kind of remember which ones these are. So you can also, as I mentioned earlier, you can attach these to worksheet events. So for example, this worksheet, whenever this recalculates, if the amount of departments over budget is greater than 0, then you get a little sad trombone noise, and then you get your little pop-up message. So just trying to keep things interesting. That's what I got for you all today.
All right. Awesome. You've been using that soundtrack ever since Sylvia came on last time. So I'm curious how many sriracha she's getting on this one.
You know what, man? This is a glorious day. This is just plain glorious. You know that?
Wow.
Thank you.
That's right, man. This is a wonderful, wonderful day.
Good time. All right, so thank you for that. We're going to move on to the news section. So I have 3 things to share. I have past, present, and future. So share our screens here real quick. First off, I have the past. All right, I'd like to share with everybody that about 2 weeks or so ago, Jordan was kind enough to invite us to the MVP Summit, to where there's an MVP showcase where they talk about different things that the MVPs are involved in. So we streamed live from that. So there's 4 hours of video to where we just basically set up a camera on top of our booth, and whoever was coming by, Oz was there, I was there. That's John Peltier. That's another MVP who was actually happy to see us. That's always nice. And a lot of people who kind of came by here. So I'm going to be editing this over the next week or so, just highlighting the names of the different people who are coming by. But just go check this out. This is pretty neat video. So that's where we were about 2 weeks ago. So let's talk about the present. The present, I'd like to bring your attention to something that was just released by Antivia. So you can go over to antivia.com/decision point -Excel. So this is basically a standalone version of the popular dashboarding product that they already have. You know, it's basically interactive dashboards for companies that base their business on Excel data. So, you know, you click down here, you can download the trial, you can kind of check this out. We are talking to Antivia. Hopefully by the time you watch this video in the next few days, we'll have a discount code for you. So stay tuned. Hopefully there'll be something up here in the video so you can kind of test this out and maybe get a little bit of a discount. So go ahead and at least check that out. Next thing is the future. Future, Model Off 2014. That's in a few weeks. That's the first weekend in December. December, gosh, 6th, 7th, 8th. We're going to be there. George's going to be there. I was going to be there. I'm going to be there. Mr. Excel, Bill Jellen's going to be there. And in addition to all of us, hey, cool people are going to be there too.
Johan and John.
Johan and John.
That's right.
These right here are the 12 finalists. So see here, Hillary Smart made it again. Congratulations, Hillary Smart. I was happy to see Levi Bailey. You might remember Levi Bailey. He runs ExcelFinancialModeling.com. He's also the guy who watches the show, so we're looking forward to meeting him and all of the other 12 finalists.
Wow.
So this is going on, man. This is hand-to-hand combat. This is keyboard-to-keyboard combat here in just a few weeks, early December. And here's the thing. Let me bring this back to me here real quick. So this is early December. We're all gonna be there, and you know, we'll try to get a lot of interviews from these people. Hopefully, you know, I know the Model Off guys are going to stream live from there, and hopefully, you know, we'll be able to get some footage there too. Hopefully, stream live as well. We'll see how that goes. But you know, it's a lot of exciting stuff going on Excel TV. So episode number 20 will be early December, and that's going to close out our season. You know, first season. Wow, kind of crazy to think it's already come and gone. So let's see also that Jordan, you have some news.
I do have some news. Okay, so I'm just going to jump to the easy news. It's a two-parter. Obviously, not to just keep driving this home, but my book did come out. I do believe that, because I read a lot of tech books, and I do believe that you should really try your best to get a deal on them. So let me just pull this up real quick. Just trying to get my screen ready. Let's see here. Jump to this screen right here. Okay, so right now Amazon has the cheapest price. So I know the Kindle price keeps changing. So if you do end up wanting to look at this Kindle, I saw it as low as $17 at one point. If you go to apress.com, it's a little bit more expensive. So Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com have the cheapest one so far, so I would just make sure to check them out every once in a while. Barnes & Noble gets it a little cheaper, and then Amazon goes to meet it. But it does change every day, and I really do believe, you know, I know this works against, some people wouldn't say this, but, you know, I listen to Clark Howard, who talks about saving money, and he always told people to buy his book used if they could get it. And I almost always buy my book used. So I'm really interested in people actually obtaining the book and getting the material. So if you can find a used version of it, obviously, I'd say go ahead and check it out. I would just love for you guys to check out the book. And I do have free chapters available, Chapters 1 and Chapter 3, which will be up on my blog soon and up on Excel TV soon. So make sure to check out those free chapters, and you know, hopefully it'll entice you into wanting to read the book. The second thing I'm going to show you is I have rebranded. So the name of my company has changed. I am no longer Goldmeier Consulting. I am now Cambia Factor Consulting. So you can go to cambiafactor.com and check out my new landing page. Actually, the full web page is going to be up in the next few weeks or so, but this is the landing page, and yeah, check it out. So really, I just wanted to announce that I am launching the new, all new, improved Jordan Consulting Company.
All right.
This is old school right here. This is how you do it old school.
Yeah.
And I'm
Congratulations, Jordan. Onwards and upwards.
I promise to shave for our engagement. You know, if we have a contract engagement, I will shave and I will look professional. I'll put on a suit and a tie, and I will solve your problem.
Awesome.
Probably.
We're done.
So, Oz, you got some news as well?
All right, yeah. I just got some news that John and Johan, they started swimming from Australia a couple weeks ago, and they swam to Venezuela, and they're in Brazil right now. They're heading north to New York. They'll be there. They'll be there. But they might be tired, though. But they are almost to New York. For
reference, John and Johan are the guy at Modeloff.
Yeah, the founders of Modeloff. Yes, they will be there from Australia. They were in an earlier episode of Excel TV. All right. Okay, so news. Let me share my screen. Okay, so you see my screen now?
I do, we do.
All right, so this weekend I am hosting a webinar. Excel, what is it and what can it do? It's just $27, an hour and a half. See, it's 8 a.m. Pacific, and then there will be another session the following Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. And this is for people. I get a lot of questions about what is Excel, what can it do. So this is going to be a quick overview and then some very specific takeaways around getting the most from Excel that would, be more efficient, help you keep track of your inventory or your money or your hours. Some very specific things that can help you with that. And so yes, so this is at Eventbrite, and you can get in touch with us, or you can find it on Eventbrite. And I wanted to share with you that this is a sway that Microsoft released here recently, and it's a very simple tool for creating stories. You don't have the detailed control of, say, a web page, right? So it's very easy to have things look good without getting too deep in the weeds. All right, so here's a sway that's been developed around who would play you in an Excel movie. And we've been asking our guests that, and we have,
Hello. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. That's right.
Yes. And
Nice.
Kira Knightley as Minda Tracy. Oh, here we go.
I don't like that one. I don't remember saying that. I thought I said Freddie Prinze Jr.
You said that. You said that, Jordan. All right. Rick, Anthony, Alfred Newman. Bill Jelen.
Yes.
Played by Dan Aykroyd. Mike Gervin plays Mike Gervin. Kedra Chaney. Grace Jones. And then here we go. Those are the founders of Modeloff.
Mm-hmm.
Jason
Yeah, I can see that.
John Persico.
It sort of reminds me of Prezi.
Edward Norton. Johan.
Nice.
Lady Gaga would play me.
Yeah.
Lady Gaga would play
Perfect sense.
you.
That's right.
That's what you mean. So, so who would Lady Gaga play? She would be you.
Yeah, that's right. So Tom Hanks, John Acampora, Kerry Walken picked Jack Black.
Nice.
Yeah. And
Oz, can you add sound to Sway?
Let's see. So you go to storyline, and then if you wanted to add something, you'd go here, media.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that includes sound. It does include video. So
No?
yes,
Okay.
I do have a sway where I put video in. So
I see. Cool.
yeah. And here are some of the simple layouts, right? So some of these are coming soon. So you can do a stack, you can do a group of pictures. These are coming soon. You can do over here, you've got vertical or horizontal scrolling right now, and these are coming soon. So I'm gonna come back.
Might be our longest show ever already. So
Right.
let's put it and wrap that up.
So yeah.
One of the things we'll need to make sure we add Dave Bruns to that as well.
Oh yes, I do have the spreadsheet because I met everybody at the MVP Summit. That was a great time, and I did talk with the people who aren't in the sway yet. I do have them listed, and they will get in the sway. And briefly, the summit was great. It was great meeting Rick and Jordan there, Minda, a lot of folks. The one moment I mentioned, remember, Bob Umlis's wife wanted to see him beat me up.
And I mean,
She said something about I called him a dinosaur on Excel TV. I never said that. No, I think she was trying to get him to. But no, I'm a gentleman. I'm not.
I thought Zach said that he was the hottest Excel MVP.
Oh, okay.
So Sylvia, you had some news as well?
yes, webinars finally starting December 3rd. Tables, 10 amazing things you can do with tables. These are CPE, NASBA certified CPE webinars. So that means they are nationally accredited for all you accountants out there. We haven't announced pricing yet, but I am hoping that that'll be announced this week. So first week of December, the 3rd for the pilot, and then the 4th for the real deal. 11 a.m. Pacific time, pricing to be announced, and then next year we will have 2 live trainings on the calendar every month, and also 2 webinars. So it's going to be a great gangbusters year for new Excel training programs next year. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Excel on Twitter. More announcements coming soon, but it's a little premature. But 2015 is going to be a good one.
Yes, it is.
Agreed. So moving on to the where can you find us? We're everywhere. In addition to that, we're also on Google+. So I want to share something with you that we just opened up here in the last week or so. Screen share too. It's a brand new community. MS, Excel, Education, and Entertainment. So here's the thing, you go to a lot of different Google groups or groups on LinkedIn, and they're great. They're great for getting questions answered and, for a lot of different things. But one of the things that you won't find in there quite often is a place where you might have the latest Excel books and Excel products or add-ins and templates or Excel news or different contests. The reason being is most of those group owners, and I feel this way too. I feel like I'm spamming if I put in an add-in or put in something that's commercial in there. And so the whole point of this community that we've created is basically so that you can go ahead and put in your jokes. If you created an awesome chart, hey, I'm talking to you, E90, E50. If you created, or even John Peltier, you created something awesome. Hey, here's a place for you to go ahead and put it. You created a brand new add-in. Man, just go ahead and put that in here. And so we'll go ahead and click on that.
And how about that Excel meme?
Yeah, Excel jokes. And so the sway is in here along with Word. I like that.
Yeah. Let's see that meme.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So go ahead and find us over here. We'll stop. There. So brand new group. So don't be shy. Come on over. Put in your tips. Put in your questions. If you're asking questions on Facebook, this might be a better place. There's quite a few MVPs in there and quite a few just experts in there. Who are who are hanging around. So put in your questions and answers. Also, if you have Excel contests, that's another one of the areas we have in there. There's no real area that I know of, on the web to where all the Excel contests are kind of in one place, from model off to, if Chandu has a dashboarding contest or Mr. Michael Alexander has a meme contest. Where's all that kind of stuff combined in one place? Or there's Excel news. Is that all combined in one place? There's a few places, and Deborah Dalglash's website, but this is a place where all of those things could be in one place. So just go ahead and check it out.
Yeah.
Next up, hey Sylvia. Last time you were here, there were rave reviews, and I think I can quote Maxine Manuel from Haiti on this. Sylvia is so boss. I think that's the quote. Sylvia was so boss. And so, you were here from our very first episode. Thank you for coming back. You're always.
Well, thank you for doubling my salary from the last episode. You guys know that's the only reason I came back. I like how you met my demands. The M&Ms were separated in my trailer here, like I requested. So I'm glad to be back.
It's a contrarian view. We appreciate that. We appreciate you being here. So,
I love it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for showing up and for being part of the program again.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody, episode 20 next week. It's on season 1. That's kind of crazy. 20 episodes. We actually, kind of did it. So it's kind of cool. We're going to be at Model Off. We're going to be up in New York City. Me and Jordan hanging out with Mr. Bill Joe and all those 12 cool kids in financial modeling and all that sort of good stuff. So, heck, we'll see you there. Until next time, this is Jordan Goldmeier, author of Advanced Excel Essentials, Oz du Soleil, and this is Rick Grantham. We'll see you in about 3 weeks at Model Off. We'll see you there.
Right.